You're listening to Audiology. Support this channel by becoming a member and be sure to submit your requests for topics in the comments below. The Dead Rabbits was a notorious gang made up of Irish Americans, which made Lower Manhattan their stomping ground back in the 1830s to 1850s. They ended up with this eerie name after a peculiar incident during a gang meeting where a dead rabbit was tossed right into the middle of the gathering. Some of the gang members saw this as a bad sign, decided to split and started their own group. They even had a dead rabbit on a stick as their fight flag. These folks were often at odds with groups who didn't take kindly to Irish Catholics, seeing them as troublemakers, or worse. The New York City Police Department had their own pet name for the dead rabbits, calling them the Mulberry Boys and the Mulberry Street Boys because they hung out and caused mayhem along Mulberry Street in the notorious 5 Points area. Back in the early 19th century in Manhattan, there was this gang known as the Dead Rabbits. They originally split off from another gang, the Roach Guards, because they were unhappy with how things were going. The Dead Rabbits quickly grew into a huge Irish crime group with over 100 members ready for action. Their biggest enemies? The Bowery Boys, a group of native New Yorkers who didn't take kindly to immigrants and backed the Know Nothing Party, which was all about that anti-immigrant sentiment. Despite this, Michael Walsh linked the Bowery Boys to Ireland's Protestant minority and immigrants from that background, which might seem strange because they were anti-Catholic. But as Herbert Asbury noted in his 1927 book, Gangs of New York, An Informal History of the Underworld, this odd situation makes sense when you consider the deep divides back in Ireland over religion, culture, and economics that the Irish brought with them to America. These two gangs didn't get along, to say the least. Over 10 years, starting in 1834, they had more than 200 fights. They were so tough, they could even outnumber the police and state militias. But the Dead Rabbits weren't just about brawling in the streets. They were also politically involved. They backed politicians like Fernando Wood and supported the Tammany Hall political machine, aiming to help immigrants and minorities. Under the lead of Isaiah Rinders, they didn't shy away from using force to make sure people voted for their candidates. There's this nearly mythical story about a fearsome dead rabbit warrior named Hell Cat Maggie. She was said to sharpen her teeth to points and wear brass on her fingernails when she fought. On Independence Day in 1857, things really kicked off with a huge riot involving the Dead Rabbits, the Metropolitan Police, the Bowery gangs, the Municipal Police, and several other groups on Bayard Street. Members of these gangs, including the Dead Rabbits, are believed to have taken part in other major riots of the time, including the 1863 New York draft riots and the Orange riots in the early 1870s. These events were particularly tense because they happened around July 12th, an important day that commemorated Irish Protestant traditions and stoked the ongoing tensions between different Irish communities in the US, a discord still felt in Northern Ireland today. By 1866, newspapers in New York City stopped talking about the Dead Rabbits as an active gang, and they started referring to them in the past tense. Even so, the term Dead Rabbit stuck around until the 1880s as a broad label for young, lower-class criminals. Interestingly, there was a gang very similar to the Dead Rabbits over in Liverpool, England, around the same time, which would come together like a militia during crises. Lyrics detailing the battle between the Dead Rabbits and the Bowery Boys on the 4th of July, 1857, were written by Henry Sherman Backus and Daniel Decatur Emmett. Chorus: then pull off the coat and roll up the sleeve. For Bayard is a hard street to travel, so pull off the coat and roll up the sleeve. The bloody 6th is a hard ward to travel, I believe. Like wild dogs they did fight this 4th of July night. Of course they laid their plans accordingly. Some were wounded and some killed, and lots of blood spilled in the fight on the other side of Jordan. Chorus: the new police did join the Bowery Boys in line, with orders strict and right accordingly. Bullets, clubs, and bricks did fly, and many groan and die. Hard road to travel over Jordan. Chorus: when the new police did interfere, this made the rabbits sneer, and very much enraged them accordingly. With bricks they did go in, determined to win, and drive them on the other side of Jordan. Chorus: upon the following day, they had another fray, the Blackbirds and Dead Rabbits accordingly. The soldiers were called out to quell the mighty riot, and drove them on the other side of Jordan. Thanks for watching. Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more content.